Okay. Hello everybody. Welcome back to the Last of Us review. We are here on the uh second last episode. So the next episode of the series will be the last episode, and the episode after that of this review series will be the overall show. Now, let's talk about this episode, which is episode 8, if I'm correct. Uh this episode follows the winter season, and ends right before entering in the game's timeline, right before entering spring. So yeah, uh, last episode there was lots of problems with it. For one, they removed almost everything. Or no, the episode's not 8, or 7, 6. 6 removed a lot of important things. For one, they changed how Joel got injured. It was already winter. They made Joel a freaking crybaby. This episode goes, that episode? Yeah, that episode? Screw that episode. This episode, you got to see real Joel. The Joel that you would know from the video games. An aggressive Joel. Which is great. And you also get to see the somewhat more likable Ellie. They actually are probably the most character accurate right here in this episode. Which is great. David was way better here. I think it was a lot more interesting with more context added to him instead of just being a mysterious cannibal in the game series. In this, he's religious cannibal. They take out a few of the fighting sequences, or for the most part, they take out the zombie sequence at the start of the winter arc and then shorten the rest of the sequences. So there is essentially zero fighting. For once, we actually get to see the characters kill humans, which is crazy, because this show seems to despise doing that. They, at all costs, will avoid... they avoid confliction, conflicts, violence. And for once, they actually kept something violent in. They showed the Joel interrogating scene, which is one of my favorite parts of that sequence, where it's like, mark this place on the map, or I'm going to continue torturing you, and then he marks the spot, kills the other guy. In the game, he snaps the neck. In this, he stabs him. And then bro walks up to the other guy with a metal pipe in his hand in both iterations. And he's like, you're a freaking psycho, I'm not going to tell you anything. And then he goes, it's fine. I believed him. And then just whacks him. There's blood shown in the game. Well, it just cuts to black. In this, and I still feel like it gives the same feeling. There's just no confirmation that, there's blood. We know he for sure killed that guy, though. And again, they made David a really creepy guy, and I thought they did that great. They managed to make David feel as creepy as he possibly could. And I liked that. It makes David more of a villain character. And they didn't... And with the when they removed the scene of them having that point where they, fight the zombies and then, gain a little trust, they don't have that. So at no point in time does Ellie mistrust trust these guys. She always is not trusting those characters. And I think that's perfectly fine to take out. Also, the original voice actor for Joel was in this episode. He played, I think his name was like Jerry or something like that. He was Buddy Boy. And yeah. Either way. it is so nice to see actual, you know, development and violence shown via the characters, and not necessarily development, but violence shown by the characters in a clearly violent setting. I just wish the zombie show that they've clearly hyped up would stay as a zombie show, as they've barely done anything with the zombies at all other than say, yep, they are definitely here. I think that is the biggest change that they need to do, as zombies really feel like they're not that big. They rarely run into zombies because they always just get rid of the encounters. It is definitely nice and definitely a breath of fresh air to see that the character Joel and Ellie are definitely becoming more like their game characters, which some might say, oh, that's not good, that's just copying over. But the thing is, their characters are what they are. You can't really change how the character acts without changing bits and pieces of the story. Similar to what they did in Velma. They changed the characters, but they didn't, and their personalities and whatnot, made them non-likable, but proceeded to still, make it take place in the world and in the setting that Scooby-Doo is supposed to take place in. It's like, yeah, this is Scooby-Doo, but it's different because we've removed everything that you would like about the series. I'm not saying that's what The Last of Us is, as they clearly have the heart from The Last of Us, just adding some new things and taking away a lot of the violence. And I don't like how they take out a lot of the violence, but I don't think, it's, in this case, for this episode, it's a bad thing. This was definitely my second favorite episode. It's amazing. They actually brought in the violence. The emotion wasn't there, like I think what was my previous second favorite episode was the Sam and Henry episode. But I got to admit, this episode definitely it definitely makes me feel like, yeah, this is the setting, this is everything the game series originally was. This is what I played. I experienced similar things. There is a couple of nitpicks I have, though. For one, when Ellie goes hunting, they've removed the fact that she was on the horse. The fact that she was on the horse is quite important, because she can't cover her tracks while she's on the horse very easily, but when she's walking, she can cover her tracks, and she was clearly worried about that. My next problem. It seems that, what was it? What was my other gripe with this episode? I can't think of it. Let me just think of the other things. Yeah, so I enjoyed how they brought Joel back into the things, and I definitely noticed that, even in the game, he is injured during that section, and he's limping the entire time. But, like, in this, when he was torturing those guys, he's like, taking deep breaths, he's like leaning over, he's like, you can clearly see that he's still injured and sick. I liked that. Arya specifically stated that she didn't think that it really felt like David was the only one keeping Ellie alive. I would disagree with her in this state, in this, for this reason, because, David, for one, in this, actually went to where Ellie was staying, and you can hear him clearly say, "Oh, don't kill her," you know. Well, compared to the game, which Arya said, you know, iteration was. It showed that David was more clearly trying to protect Ellie. Uh, but I don't really think it did it as well as he clearly told them there, like, restrain yourself. They all had her down and pointing guns at her, and then he came in, they're like, no, I'm protecting her, you know? So I think this episode did a phenomenal job at villains, bringing in the violence, making the characters accurate to their actual game iterations. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking not a bad thing, great thing. They actually finally showed what they've been mentioning about Joel in almost all the episodes. They mentioned Joel to be this, you know, aggressive guy, crazy sometimes, you know. In bad situations, he'll do anything to get out, you know. He'll do unspeakable things. He'll just murder people, torture them, you know. And you actually finally got to see that, and that is what was needed. It was needed to state that these characters, you know, they stated multiple times with, even in the Frank and Bill episode, you know, Bill was like, oh, you're a lot like me, you know, you're aggressive, you're crazy. And, you know, everybody is, like, scared of Joel because, you know, he's aggressive and crazy, and you finally see why. And you could say, oh yeah, he was holding back. But really, the thing is, was he holding back? And why would he be holding back in these other scenes? Like, when they crashed the truck, it's like, why wouldn't he go crazy there? In the game, he, like, absolutely brutally murders, like, 4 people there. In the show, though, it's like, I've mentioned this before, too, he apparently just shoots the one guy. It's like, that's one guy. And that is probably, that's what I like so much about this episode. And I had one more problem. At the start, they reference Joel as the crazy man who, in this random town, attacked this one guy and killed him. They call him crazy, and they're trying to find him, you know, because he's kind of crazy. But the problem that I find there is that Joel wasn't crazy there. They attacked him first, and then he attacked back. Killed the one guy. Ellie killed the one guy. Not even Joel. Ellie killed the one guy. And, you know, I just don't understand why they currently think he's a crazy man. Yeah, maybe the other character's story was different and depicted him as the crazy man. Yeah, but they seem to be referencing Joel, like, at the very start of this episode, as the crazy man, which doesn't make sense in this context, because at this point in time, he isn't a crazy man. He is just a normal guy. So, yeah. That's all I can really say about this episode. I think it was odd to call Joel the crazy man before he actually did anything that was, you know, very aggressive, to make yourself seem like a crazy person. Like, just slaughtering a million people just to find Ellie, torturing them, snapping their necks, stabbing them, you know, just to find Ellie in the game. And he does most of those things. He stabs them, I assume he shoots them. And, yeah, it's just, they show that Joel is crazy here, but at the point in time where we're introduced to Joel and told that he's crazy, he isn't actually. He's just kind of a normal crybaby kind of guy. It was great to see that, and that's why I'm gonna have to rank this as my number 2 episode. I don't know what I gave number 3. I assume it was like a 9, I think I'll also give this one a 9, but just slightly below. This episode was really good, and I think I've also done that for the other episode that I put in second before, which is now in third. These episodes are great. Episode 3 is still the best episode. It strayed the furthest away from the story, but it showed something that was interesting. Something different that I didn't expect to see, compared to all of these, where I do expect to see something. Though at this point, I always am expecting to see no violence, and I was very happy to see that there was actually violence. So, yeah, this episode was pretty good. Yeah. I can't believe we're already about to move on to the last episode. They did this very last minute where they introduced us to the real Ellie and Joel, and then said, yep, this is the second last time you'll be seeing these characters before the show ends. Ha ha ha. Of course, they're planning on probably doing The Last of Us Part 2 as well in the story, but I assume that'll take a while to film, edit, and stuff like that. So, I know this one is probably the longest of the reviews. This one I had the most amount to say because, honestly, 3 was a great episode, but this one could even potentially be better, if I think about it more. This episode was the most accurate to the game, or probably, yeah, it's probably the most accurate to the game. They literally took out, like, fights, and that was it. But almost all of the things that they said was, like, direct quotes. So yeah, this one was probably the most accurate to the game, and probably the second best one. 3 strayed the furthest away, and it will probably stay as my favorite. But, you know, thank you all for watching this review video, and I'll see you all in the next. And hopefully I will be able to post all of the footage that I recorded. I recorded 14 hours worth of The Last of Us Part 1. 14 hours. See you all in the next one. Bye.